Okay, good. Yeah, I know. That's why I put it on my phone to make the hotspot. Okay. All right. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Abraham and Rachalea. Sorry for the delay. It had a technical issue. We'll have to fire all those people involved with the technical issues and start over. I'll be your partner in trying to solve that issue. Get it? Okay. We are on the beginning. Oh, wait, I forgot one second. Let's do this. Yes. And yes. Okay. We are on the beginning of a second half of the journey in this book, and it had to do with the topic of pre-shoot is where it starts, which is the middle of chapter 13. I'll tell you exactly where in a minute, in Yud Gimel. And we had seen that up until this point, the idea was to become, quote, and I purposely say, quote, a tzaddik. Okay, whatever that description means, we're going to leave that nebulous for right now, because there are multiple descriptions of what a tzaddik is. And now we're moving into someone who wants to become a chassid. Again, does not mean someone who is a pious guy with black hat. Doesn't mean he's pious. There's a black hat and curls and black coat and a white shirt and whatever. I'll leave the political aspect out. But it means pious. It's a higher level of tzaddik, and it is. And as will become clear as we move through this particular chapter, and he will say it very clearly if we get to it today, that we're really talking about a sliver of the society. So why, I know I'm repeating myself from last week, but it's important. Why learn this half of the book? If really this only seems to affect, people can strive for this, a very small percentage. So we'll see. We'll talk about this. The birds are all gilgulim of people who learn Mesliat Yesharim, and they're commenting right now on what I'm saying. So it's very special. Thank you. Okay, so that goes back to the time of the Baal Shem Tov. It's a good, very good question. Yes, but there was also some man who was named Rabbi Yehuda Chassid. There's certain people who received the Torah Chassid, right? And yet Yosef was referred to as Yosef HaTzadik, not Yosef HaChassid. So again, there are terms that we use in modern Hebrew that don't necessarily reflect historical accuracy. But if you remind me, I'll do a little bit of background and hope that the next class will. But please remind me, because I will already forget your name by the time we get to the next class. Thank you. Okay. So hi, my name is Zev Shandlov, and we're going to start Mesliat Yesharim today. Anyways, we are in the middle of paragraph 13, chapter 13. You're going to find a paragraph that starts with the words Ach ha'inyan hu. Let me just see what page that is in here. Page 86. Page 86 in the little book. Or again, Ach ha'inyan hu, wherever you're left off. So to recap, we had seen what seems to be a contradiction, which is known as a seeming apparent contradiction, but it's not really a contradiction, is help me out here, my mind just went blank. Oh man. Yeah, apparent contradiction, but it's not a contradiction. Okay, it'll come to me. On the one hand, we have psukim that definitely support the idea of working on pre-shoot. And what does pre-shoot mean in the simplest terms? Separating yourself from things that are permissible. Eating less, doing certain things that will keep you away from doing sin, even though they themselves are perfectly legitimate and okay to do. And there's certain psukim that seem to support the idea that that's absolutely the worst idea you can think of. So he came to the conclusion last week, and this is where we left off, that there's good pre-shoot and there's bad pre-shoot, or as he says, really foolish pre-shoot. Foolish, stupid, ridiculous. Yes, Judy.
Does that mean, for example, separating yourself from the opposite sex?
Okay, we're going to come to this. So the question is, does that mean separating yourself from the opposite sex? We're going to come to that partially in the text and partially outside. The reason I say that, we're going to come to a paragraph that I won't do in mixed company. You can read it on your own. But that will lead us to that topic. Yes, absolutely. Okay.
And how much food can you give up? People need.
Okay, you're jumping the gun. That's okay. That's fine. How much food can a person give up? A ton of food, absolutely. Well, yeah, no question. I don't know if you've seen what's going on in the United States lately. I don't know about now, but the size of the cups has got, a regular is like 64 ounces. That's a regular. You want to supersize it, they bring in like a beep, beep, beep. They back the truck in with, put a hose in it, just open your mouth and drink. So yeah, it's insane. Absolutely insane. Like you go to Aroma. He said, you want a medium or large? I'll take a large. Okay, here it is. It's that much, like 1 inch bigger than a medium. Yes, also true. Yes. Okay. So yes, the obesity issue is much less than it is in the United States. Definitely. Okay. So let's move on. Okay. Yeah, I mean, your question like is correct. Like, how much can we give up and all? But we have to first see how he is going to hagdir, how he's going to categorize and explain what this really is. Okay. There are obviously distinctions to be made when it comes to the concept of prishut. Yesh prishut shenitztaven. This is where I left off. I'm reading it again though. Yesh prishut shenitztavenu bo. There is some area of prishut that we were commanded to follow. Yesh, wait a minute. If you're commanded, how come we don't have to do it? All of us. We'll see. Yesh prishut. What's that?
What does that mean?
You know what you're reminding me of?
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's perfectly fine, Judy. I like when you ask questions. I really do. When I was in, what grade do we learn decimals? Like 4th grade, maybe something like that. No, because these things stick in my head and I don't have any idea why. We were starting to learn the concept of the decimal system. And I asked the question because I am very much like, I just want to know, just get me the answer ready, right? So I didn't know how to pronounce the word, but we had the word in the book, DECIMAL. And the teacher starts to give introduction, and I just raised my hand. I said, "What's a decimal? I don't get it. What's a decimal? What are we supposed to do with it? Something like that." Just relax. It's a decimal, and we're going to learn about it. That's what today's class is about. Pronounce the word right, is decimal, right? Okay, so here's a trivia question for you. If DEC means 10, right, like a decade, why is December the 12th month? It does mean 10. Why is December the 12th month?
Because of the Romans.
Yeah, because they added June and July. Was the 10th month till June and July came along. Okay, and what does Jason have to do with the calendar? Think about it. Well, don't think about it now. What does Jason have to do with the calendar? Don't think about it now. I see you're thinking, Mark. Okay, well. Okay, let's move on with life here. So on the one hand, we have that which is we're required to try to attempt. On the other hand, we're also commanded that we should not get ourselves tripped up in creating these things that really have not only they have no bearing in helping us, but they actually cause us to trip up and make things worse. Don't overdo it. Don't be such a tzaddik, right? What does that even mean? Like, okay, I'm only going to keep Shabbat every other week. No, that doesn't mean that. What does it really mean? We're going to see as we go through this chapter. It'll hopefully become clearer. Now he says, I'm going to explain to you what is the good prishut. We know that this life is filled with nisyonot, with tests. I don't mean tests you take in school. Talk about day-to-day things that we're tested by or with. As I already mentioned before, I've already given all kinds of proof. And it's already, we know the veracity, the truth of all this. That people are not innately, naturally strong to overcome their Yetzer Hara, and how close they are to leaning towards the not good stuff. Anything he can do to distance himself, to escape from the clutches of something that may not be okay, it's proper to do. He still hasn't explained. Okay, this is still his Introduction. In order to be careful, extra careful of getting involved in something you shouldn't. He says there's almost nothing. He says nothing. I'm saying almost nothing because I'm sure you can come up with an idea that gives us pleasure in this world, benign pleasure, proactive pleasure, whatever it might be, that somehow doesn't connect itself in one way or another to sin, somehow or not. Now, some of you are thinking, I imagine, Judy, that this is a very Catholic belief. Like, this is sin, almost sounds like original sin, almost sounds like, you know, everything is terrible in this world, and food's no good, and sex is no good, and breathing is no good, and walking is no good. Okay, that's not what he's saying. Not at all. So just hang in there. Let's get some ideas here. Derek Mashal. He gives an example. We're going to talk about food. That's why I said to hang in there for a minute. Let me ask you a question. What's the answer to the following question? Is food good?
Yes, in proper amount.
It's a yes or no question. Yes or no?
Yes.
The answer is yes and no. As Judy just mentioned, it's proper amount. Okay. What if a person, chas v'shalom, is allergic to something, right? We have many people who have peanut allergies. That would be a very dangerous. Oh, that didn't look like it. That looked like that hurt. Yeah. If a person has a peanut allergy, I don't, thank God. So if I take a peanut, make a bari piyadama and pop it in my mouth. By the way, peanut is not a nut. It's a legume. Well, it's not a legume. It's not kitniot. So says Moshe Feinstein. Then I make a bari piyadama, I pop it in my mouth. Fine, no problem. Take that same peanut and give it to someone who I know happens to live on this block has a terrible peanut allergy, and he God forbid, if he doesn't have his EpiPen, he'll be in the hospital, right? So what's the difference? So sometimes for other reasons, food can be good and bad, but also forget the allergy, just eating, right? I like to eat, as does everyone, to a certain degree, I imagine, but it also leads to eating disorders. It leads to overeating. It leads to obesity. It leads to heart disease. At least there's so much that can be wrong with eating. It also, I think, parenthetically, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor, but I do think that food has played a very serious role in the amount of ADD and ADHD children that are currently in the educational system anywhere, at least in North America and Israel, as far as I can see. Whether it's sugar or other issues, whatever these things may be. So yes, he's saying, if you have kosher food, and you're not going to be bisari and eating chalavi then, but it's kosher. You know, you take a candy bar, you take a piece of meat, you take an apple, whatever it might be, and you make the right bracha, it's fine. Nothing wrong with it. Sorry, omnam, but miluya keres moshech acharav prikat haol. Stuffing yourself leads to throwing off the ol. What's an ol? Ayin vav lamed means the yoke of heaven. What do you mean? I have too much to eat, right? I go to my daughter, I go to a restaurant, I go to sit at my table at home, and I eat too much. What? All of a sudden, I'm not going to be shomer Torah mitzvot? What does that mean? We'll see. Getting drunk, too much wine, and any other thing, any other alcohol, could end up leading a person to znut, illicit more sexual relations, and other bad stuff. There is somebody who I know, her last name, can't remember her first name all of a sudden. Her name Medioni, was up the hill. Her husband's been in the police force for many, many years. Her son's a student of mine in school. On, I think it was Motsash, I don't remember. She was driving her car, drunk driver hit her. She was badly beat up. Thank God her head's okay, but lots of broken bones and everything else. And she's still in the hospital. They just took her out of intensive care yesterday. The guy that did that to her, first of all, he should be in jail for the rest of his life, and he should have his license taken away, and he should have his life destroyed as well, in many other ways. But that's why I'm not in the justice system. But it's because why? Because he felt, I'm going to drink as much as I want. So what? It's only me. And then he went and had, not to mention, of course, that unfortunately incidences where people are killed by drunk drivers. So that's what he means. He obviously didn't know about drunk drivers yet because this is the 1700s. You don't drive your horse drunk, I guess. Maybe you can. It's not going to cause the same damage. Yeah.
It is the concept of Ben Torah. It's Minotaur.
So we're going to see. Very good. Okay, excellent. So he mentioned the topic. It's called Ben Sorer Moreh. We're going to come to that. I'll explain what it is. Then he says like this: how much more so? It's one thing if I overeat or overdrink one time and may lead to something not good. But when it becomes who I am, when I'm used to it all the time, if I'm missing it, I need my alcohol. I need my extra 5,000 calories, whatever it might be. And then you don't have it, he'll be in it'll cause him pain. He'll feel it. He'll be in like this race, so to speak. No. He's like, wait a minute, I need more. Okay. I need 3 more bottles of vodka on the table. I need 4 more pounds of meat, 2 more kilo of the ground beef. And I got to get it. And I'm going to run around like a crazy man and start finding it wherever I can. It leads down a dark hole, causes a person to maybe do things they shouldn't do, maybe even steal, maybe to shavuot. What are shavuot? It means oaths, promises. Like, listen, okay, I'm going to take this to the extreme, to a person who's addicted, whether it's to food or whatever it might be. Listen, I know I can't pay you today. I swear to you know who, I will get you the money tomorrow. I need that money. I need that food now. I need that drug now. I need that drink now, whatever it might be. And all other sins that come afterwards. This is the definition of prikat ol. It eventually doesn't mean because I had too much to drink, which I never have done, thank God. I have too much to drink that all of a sudden I'm not a shomer Torah mitzvot and I throw off the yoke of Torah. No, it means a person becomes this type of an individual. It eventually leads to a person leaving behind service of Hashem, learning Torah, davening. Could have avoided this, right? He could have avoided the whole problem. One second. Could have avoided it. If from the very beginning he had, now I'm not talking about someone who has an illness. I'm not talking about alcoholism. I know. That's why I said I'm taking it to an extreme. A person who has an illness, depending on the severity, whether it's alcoholism or drug abuse or whatever other addiction it might be, it is not the same thing as the quote average person who doesn't have that same drive to deal with it, right? Someone who's an alcoholic and me are both given a drink. Now I don't particularly care for schnapps. So to me, okay, if someone says, look, let's make a l'chaim, my son got engaged. Okay, fine. Shakoni abir. Oh, boom. The other guy, this is a massive test for him. Okay. We're not talking about that right now. I'm talking about somebody who just goes down a wrong path. Someone who needs either doctor intervention or needs support groups and needs a sponsor. Okay. But it can be done. It can be done. And I'm not giving any secrets away from here because he's very public about it and a humongous public Yashikoch and Naftali Kalfa, for those of you who know him. He just celebrated 7 years of sobriety. He's very public on it on Facebook. He just did a talk for the Tursky Institute that was on Zoom recently, a few days ago. And kol hakavod to him. And these are, you're battling demons. It doesn't, and just because you're sober, you don't. I don't know if you know much about alcoholism or any addiction. Especially alcoholism. You don't get cured. There's no such thing as being cured. You're not cured from pedophilia. You're not cured from alcoholism. You are controlling it. You are monitoring it. You're watching yourself, but you don't cure it. So that's an illness. And we're not talking about that. Especially in that case, the person who's aware of it obviously has to be more in tune. We're talking about the person who doesn't necessarily have to battle those demons. So it can lead to that problem. I can't say the word. Similarly, it's one I literally cannot say that word in English. It's like I would tell one of my kids, don't ever have it. You can for me, I don't care, but don't try best not to name any of your kids Dror. It's like tell the kids at school, there's no such thing as green grapes. Green grapes. So I said, okay, you think it's funny? Okay, try saying rural. Good luck. Anyways, so what's a Ben Sora Moreh, and what's he talking about? Ben Sora Moreh, first of all, the Torah tells us that a child with very, very specific parameters who steals from his meat and drink and is let's say abusive to the parents, that is actually subject to the death penalty. Now, what does that even mean? Okay, what are you talking about? Child, let's say he's 13 years old. First of all, the Gemara tells us, Lo haya v'lo nivra. There never was and there never will be such a situation. The Gemara says, okay, so why even put that in the Torah? It says that you should have something to learn that's 100% lishma. No one learns the halachot of Ben Sora Moreh for the potential maybe to have to use it and put it into practice. Nobody, because it will never be. So that's the true Torah lishma. Why that specific topic? I'm sure it's a great shiur to give. I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to do some research on that. But what happens is, it says nidon al sofo. Doesn't mean he actually did these things. It means he's in the process of doing this, and we know eventually it will lead to some terrible things, and therefore he's executed early on. So we don't let him get to that. Now, what's the big contradiction to something there? Yishmael. Now, I cannot pretend to understand God, right? But I think that had he let Yishmael die, we'd have a lot more peace in this world. But that's me. That's why we can't understand God. What happened? Yishmael is lying there dying, and he says to Hagar, well, it doesn't say, he says, he opened her eyes and she sees the water and she gives him water and he lies. But it says, also, like he says about Abraham, I'm going to make him a great nation, which he did. There are 2 billion of his descendants on this earth, of which hundreds of millions one is dead, by the way. That's like when my wife asks me every day, what's new in the news? I say, they all want us dead. They all want to kill us. That's what I say. In any case, wait a minute. Why? We know what Hashem transcends time. He knows what's going to happen. He knows there's going to be a bombing in Sabaro. He knows there's going to be the bus number 2. He knows all this other stuff that's happening now. He knows about the World Trade Center. Like, why not we don't know so full? Why not let him? He says, no, it says, Ba'asher hu sham. I'm judging him as he is right there, as he is now. By the way, which is a great educational tool, right? You have to understand whatever happened with the child, whatever they did, wherever they're at, right now. Are they making changes? Are they working on it? I'm going to look at you, Bashir Husham, and we're going to work on this together. You're going to say something before I go on. Sure.
Mitzrayim with the children put into the walls.
Yes. Yes. Oh, no, there's a big contradiction here. Then, by the way, this is not an original question by me at all. I mean, right, yeah. Oh, paradox. That's the word I was looking for before. So when you have 2 doctors, you have never mind. Sorry, couldn't miss that one. A paradox is an apparent contradiction, but when it's not really a contradiction. In any case, where was I? So on the one hand, you have Basher Husham. Yishmael is judged on him. Okay, eventually he's going to grow up and kill people. His descendants will. But judge him now. And on the other hand, you have Ben Sora Moreh. Nidon al sofo. Wait, you know what he's going to become? We're going to make sure that doesn't get to that extreme. Off of his head, so to speak. I'm not going to answer it because it's a long shiur and not prepared to give it. So I have now 2 shiurim to give at some point. But the idea being that we understand that one thing leads to another in life. By the way, it says also when it comes to addictions, that a person very often, depending on the addiction, will start off with something that they know they're not supposed to do. They're not yet hooked. And the first time they do it, it's like they're scared to do it. The second time, a little bit less so. Third time, it becomes like, okay, this is cool. We do this. And by the way, it's exactly what the Gemara says. It's exactly what the Gemara says. The Gemara says as follows. Let's see if I can remember it by heart. If a person does a veira 3 times, nasalo keheter. It's permissible for him. Gemara says, keheter salkadaitach. You mean to say because he did something 3 times, now it's okay for him to do? No. In his mind, it now seems to be okay. Because what happened? Had a friend, I'm sure I told the story. Had a friend, who was a friend, a guy I knew, a couple years younger than me. He had gone off the derech many, many years ago. I'm sure he still is, based on what I've seen him post. And I saw him, I was still single. So it was many years ago. And he said, we started talking about religion. I said, understand, What happened? He said, well, the first time I decided I was going to turn the light on Shabbat or off, nothing happened. So I did it again and nothing happened. I said, okay, I guess there's not much truth to this. So I didn't have, it was just dark or still light. Yeah, I know. But basically it meant like he didn't get, no lightning bolt came down and struck him down. Okay, fine. We go down a path and it gets harder and harder to turn back. The Gemara also tells us, and we've quoted this, the Mesliat Yesharim has used this expression a few times, by the path the person chooses, they walk him down the path. The Maharsha says, what does it mean they walk him down that path? It's talking about the angels that accompany us during the week, that join us Friday night, stay with us until we make Kiddush Friday, the next Friday night. We say bye-bye, Tzeitkhem l'shalom, or b'Tzeitchem l'shalom. We choose a path. Doesn't mean that we have to stay on that path, obviously. But I saw a wonderful line, and it is so true. I wish I had come up with this myself. Said, how do we expect our kids to stay on the derech when they keep making the derech narrower and narrower and narrower? It's so true. Now, reason I mention it is not just because it's a great line, but because it'll fit in with this chapter or this next section of the book. Like, it sounds like, whoa, like you're going to tell me I can't do this, but I'm allowed to. Yeah, but don't. We're going to see. You got to hang in. That's why I'm saying this is not one of those you just read and, okay, fine, and accept and move on. This is a process that we really have to take slowly here. Also, it says the last line of the paragraph, because of the psukim that have to do with sota and nazir, which we just read about a couple of weeks ago. The reason they're next to each other is that said whoever was involved or watched the process of a sota should then become a nazir, so he shouldn't come to the point of drinking too much wine and get himself involved in znut, etc. Now, this next paragraph, from where it says v'tir'eh, until the end of the paragraph, where it says afilu b'shat hanato, I'm going to talk about this verbally a little bit, and then we're going to go to malbushim. I'm not afraid to talk about sex. It's fine. I teach chatan classes, and I'm super graphic and explain what can be done. Notice I said what can be done, not what can't be done. I think, unfortunately, that over the last couple hundred years, last 800 years, people have forgotten what the Rambam says. And the Rambam is very, very liberal in what can happen between husband and wife. If you want to know, contact me. But this paragraph does deal with, in a very small way, but I want to deal a little bit bigger scale, has to do with the separation of males and females in society. I said it recently in a class, and I meant to take it out of the Jerusalem Post that same week. I think 4 weeks ago, I said the following, and that same week in Jerusalem Post, someone wrote a wonderful article. The idea of separating males and females at a wedding, and especially singles, is be careful. I'll choose my words here, not because I want to be politically correct, but I want to make sure I'm understood very clearly. In general, is a big mistake. First of all, keeping singles, male and female singles, separate in a very kosher environment, assuming the wedding is a kosher wedding, is one of the biggest travesties. Because they have an opportunity. He said, don't go to dancing, don't go to clubs, don't go to bars, don't go to movies together. I don't want movies. Don't. Oh, and by the way, when we're at a wedding, don't even talk to each other there either. I mean, now we're able to put up the Berlin Wall between the two. I think it's a big mistake. I think it's something that's been taken over the last 50 years, less, to an extreme, and it's only getting more extreme. There is absolutely something to be said about separation of sexes. Absolutely, positively. I see it with my own eyes in the neighborhood. I see it. There's been changes in this neighborhood, in the city, not just this, in the city, in the last 13 years since we've arrived. Is there a positive that boys and girls in certain communities are not raised to grow up together and things like youth? I love B'nai Akiva. I think it does a great thing, but in certain respects, and that it also, not just B'nai Akiva, but other things allow for certain connections and meetings and things that maybe not be the most appropriate, versus completely segregate them. Neither one's perfect. But there is something to be said about boundaries. Take the average 16-year-old kid in our world, the average 16-year-old kid, and you talk about the concept of shomer negia, you laughed in the face. I have had this discussion with 12-year-old girls, 12-year-old boys, 13-year-old boys, 13-year-old girls. I've had the discussion. I don't initiate the conversation, but when they bring it up, I had a discussion with a girl who's now 18. She mentioned to me at 13, I think it was. And at 13 years old, she wanted to talk about it. And she said, I don't understand it. After about an hour, thank God, she said to me, wow, that makes perfect sense. I really understand that now. And some of the stuff I said before, and some comes to me just talk a day when I'm talking about it. But the more you say no, 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 us or can't, and the more it's black and white, and I mean that only in quotes right now, the more tempting it becomes. Okay. Thank you for getting that. Why is it that Adam sinned? Oh, Chava made him do it. Give me a break. Hashem himself says, he was an ingrate. Really? Okay, sorry. Adam had all 600,000 neshamot in him. We are all a piece of the kelim, whatever. I'm not getting to that. Obviously, we can't understand the gadlut he was. But what was it? He had one thing to do. Don't eat from the Eitz Hadat. And that's what he did. He ate. The more you say don't, the more tempting it becomes. So we have to find a balance. I don't have a solution. I'm just mentioning the topic because before Judy mentioned it, I also was going to talk about it because of the text. We don't have a perfect solution. I don't think the complete 100% segregation, because I know of cases personally where a guy, the first girl that he really had any contact with was outside his sister or mother was his wife. I don't mean physical contact even. I'm talking about just talking, conversation. And marriages that are broken up as a result. And when there's been months after you get married, there's no sex. It's usher, it's tame. I'm saying it right I mean, in a very facetious way, obviously. So messages that were given. On the one hand, the messages that are given in society and media is do whatever you want. You know, single, not single, married, not married, who cares? You know the word apikoros, right? Same Greek shosh, Epicureanism. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we will die. We may die. I'm not making that stuff up. It's in the Gemara. It's all Mesliat Yesharim. It's in Chosah Bavos. It's everything. On the other hand, when we don't want to say everything's asur, everything's prohibited, no good. On the other hand, we don't go to the extreme and say do whatever you want. Again, there has to be a balance. Men and women are wired completely differently. Men are hardwired to, let's just say, to procreate, to propagate the species, right? Women aren't. There's a maternal instinct, there's something else potentially, but they're wired differently. And the challenge is more on the male than the female, usually, but not always. So there have to be certain gedarim, there have to be certain boundaries. Absolutely have to be certain boundaries. Not everything is okay. And I think that there needs to be some kind of a discussion at some point with the youth. That, like I said, I've had one-on-one, but maybe in a more formal setting, formal/informal setting, to really talk. You know, the expression, the word duguri in Hebrew means like talk, plain talk, like clear, no beating around the bush. Needs to happen. So at some point, I think that will happen. Ezrat Hashem. Definitely not. Definitely not. I'm not looking for you. And I'm not looking for uniformity of thought. Similarly, different approaches in life. Definitely. I'm not talking about necessarily outside our community right now. Within our community, it's a subject that needs to be raised. That drinking, more so smoking, a lot of stuff goes on under the radar, over the radar. Not so much hard drugs, but other stuff. Things. Yes.
I think there's a lack of education because parents are willing to let the teachers handle it.
Right. So Judy's saying that she thinks there's a lack of education because parents are willing to let the school just handle whatever needs to be handled, or the teachers.
And
Okay.
not pay them decent salary.
Right. And then ruin their lives by going out on strike and having your kids home all day. Yeah, like right now. All we needed was a bus strike and a other thing today that would really rounded it out. Anyways, so that is a fallacy in parenting. It's a fallacy in parenting when they think that the school is responsible to raise their child. It's a fallacy in the educational system when they think that the parents are the only ones raising the child. It's absolutely a partnership. Thank God I work where I do. I meet boys where I work. I'm very proud to say is very, very big on that topic of parents and school have to work together. And one of the things when it came to Ben Soera Moreh was the idea where it says Einenu shomea b'kolenu. It says that they don't listen. He doesn't listen to our voices, right? So when the parents give differing approaches to childhood and to parenting and to their kids, they give different messages. You can't blame the child. So if they have a uniform approach, okay, they're not going to always see eye to eye the parents on how to raise the child, but there's things that the big adult they can try to focus on. So therefore, when they give differing approaches, whether there's a divorce, they give different approaches, or they're married and they have different approaches, and the way they talk to their kids, the way they raise their kids, the way they educate their kids, no, they're going to come out not messed up, but they know what to do. If they look at their parent and the school giving them a different approach, they know how they're supposed to make a decision. At 8 years old, 10 years old, it's not like when you're 20s. In your 20s, it's your teens, you know everything. Obviously, you already know everything. Until you get a little, you realize you don't know anything. I don't know where that one day is that you realize you don't know anything, but you do know something. I don't know. I'm still waiting for that day. But yeah, it's a real serious topic that I think that needs to be discussed further. But I'm mentioning one more expression that is mentioned in halakha, which is en apotropos larayot. What does that mean? An apotropos in modern Hebrew is a guardian. So it's used. Like for example, if you are taking care of a child and you're not umatz, he's not adopted, you can be the apotropos. You could have a legal apotropos. You could have medical apotropos, like the equivalent of the yipui koach, which is power of attorney. So that's what the word means, a guardian. So what does it mean? There is no guardian for arayot. Arayot with an ayin, not with an aleph. Arayot with an aleph means lions. This doesn't mean that. It means sexual relations, all kinds of things that are inappropriate, sex. What does that mean? I won't say who it is because I don't know if this person wants this story told of him. I know, I can say firsthand, I guess. If I heard it from the person directly, I guess it's firsthand. That's actually second. I heard from the person who heard from her. There's an individual who's no longer alive, a famous Rav, big Rav, and a real one. I'm not talking about, just because he has a beard and goes around talking to people. A real respected individual who traveled a lot to speak. His wife prohibited him from ever sleeping alone in a hotel room. Ever. Either she's with him or he's home that night and flies back. Okay, why? Which one? Okay, why?
She didn't trust him.
She did not trust him. She did not trust him.
So maybe
She understood the idea, ein apotropos larayot. What does that mean? There's no guardian over arayot. There's nothing, a person can never say, li ze lo yikre. It's never going to happen to me. Never going to happen to me. Absolutely, positively not. Can't say that. No problem. Why is it in benching, when you say the birkat ha'oreach, when you bench at someone else's house, you're supposed to, that's a nice thing, you're supposed to say birkat ha'oreach, the bracha near the end, where you give a bracha to your host, which is why also if there's a mezumin, the proper thing is to have the guest also do the benching, so it's even more of a bracha for the family. But it says in the bracha ha'oreach, birkat ha'oreach, both in, I think in both, Adot Mizrach and Ashkenazi, that the person's parnasa should be close to home. Why? So they shouldn't have to travel a lot and get stuck in the Kakim of Malei Adumim. I realize I'm going over and over and over here, but it's important. What, they shouldn't? No. The closer you are to home, the safer you can be, theoretically. A person who travels a lot, is on the road months at a time, goes away for weeks at a time, comes back. Oh, and again, if they're not in a safe environment, meaning they're staying in someone's house and someone of their friends, they're always alone in a hotel room. Who knows? All it takes is one phone call. Okay? That's all it takes. And the weaker a person is, I'm not talking about physically, but in their constitution, their ability to overcome the Yetzer Hara, the more difficult it becomes. I had one person I told they got to stop traveling. Years and years, not here, years and years ago, I said, you really need to stop traveling because I know what he was up against. 99% of the time. Although that's not even true, probably 85% of the time. But there is a population that it applies to women as well. But it's not the same drive. It's not the same thing, but it definitely happens, but not to the same extent. And that's not a sexist statement. It's a realistic statement. Like I say, men and women are wired totally differently. I see, the book, Men Are From Venus, Women Are From Mars. So in that's one respect, I saw a great magnet once that said, men are from Venus, women are from Mars, children are from hell. And we had little kids when I saw that. So I was, oh yeah. Anyways, okay, listen, this is a topic I really feel very passionate about, if you didn't notice, and I could go on, but I need to stop. Maybe I'll pick it up next week. Just as a scheduling note, we're going to, Bezrat Hashem, all goes well, we're going to meet next week. I'm going to be off for a couple of weeks. I'll be leaving for 10 days. And then when I come back, we'll continue Bezrat Hashem. But hopefully, if all goes well, like I say, next week we'll meet. In the meantime, have a wonderful week, wonderful day and a week. And if you have any questions, let me know. All right.
So she was protecting him by not giving him the chance.
Deal.
But also she was protecting him from